The Predator homeworld was not in the original script.
It's one of those things like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do it, we're not going to be able to do it. And then all of a sudden, okay, fine, you could do it. Which is cool. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, what does a Predator homeworld look like?
Thousands of years ago, these hunters found a backwater planet. They taught humans how to build and were worshipped as gods.
We wanted to make sure that the Predator home planet was in line with things we know about the Predator mythology.
The only reference that we had for any of the architecture was from the first AVP movie. It was just kind of these Predator temples with cool Predator language everywhere and statues.
We're thinking that, you know, if they were going to instill some of their technology and culture on another planet, it would have to mimic at least a little bit of where they came from. We basically kind of took a look at pretty much everything that was out there. Predator 2, the interior of the ship, I think, was a very important reference for us because it showed is much more of that kind of ancient style and the designs. There's a lot of curves to it, and also just the color palette. A lot of the structures we went with are these interesting cubic structures, almost upside down type of pyramids. There's actually a convention center in Japan that I've seen that was actually a great reference for us because it actually literally is 4 upside down pyramids. And it was kind of a cool starting point. And then from there we had to sit with our concept designers, work out some different ideas of what this Predator homeworld could look like.
The good thing about the team of concept artists we have at Hydraulics is that, they take the idea and go off in their own little worlds. This planet, there was a lot of lava flow. Colin and Greg thought it might have been a little too evil. This one kind of seems like, some kind of a gladiatorial stadium. Definitely otherworldly. Greg and Colin actually thought this was pretty interesting. There is a lot of scope with this image. It definitely does feel really industrial. From this concept, we kind of got that idea from the 2 suns. That was just a concept, actually, I did a while back for the landing pad. It has that kind of sacred temple look, but mixed with, technology. Greg and Colin especially like the area with all the foliage and everything like that, and this concept specifically, the architecture seemed to be like a nice balance between sacred temples and modern technology. And so from this, they kind of wanted me to elaborate on it and, turn this into the Predator homeworld.
It definitely needed to have an atmosphere to the planet. It definitely needed to have a kind of hot feeling to the planet.
Only in the hottest years this happens. And this year it grows hot.
Predator 1 established that where they like to hunt, it's a very mountainous jungle type of environment. Because predators don't see visible light, they don't need a lot of normal lighting, and we also think that the look of their planet probably would have a different sort of color tone to it. From there, we decided to do a planet with 2 suns. It's mostly kind of orange, and basically it's like a tropical type of planet. The Predator homeworld is actually a combination of live action and CG. We actually built the Predator throne out of basically green screen plywood and had our real Predator with his animatronic head shot in camera. And then we also built the armory in camera. So those shots were completely practical.
We placed the Predator that was on set into his throne room.
And the main throne room was a fully digital set.
What this is a 3-dimensional model which can be shown in either wireframe, like that, which are all the little pieces that make up the model, or this is just flat shade and grayscale. And it's the simplest way to view a model before we start putting the textures and lighting on it. The challenge was, since nobody's ever seen this side of the Predator universe before, to make something that looked very Predator-like, aggressive and somewhat tribal. Predator's throne is adorned with skulls from previous hunts and all sorts of dinosaur bones and all sorts of crazy stuff that he's collected throughout the universe. Once you complete the model, it's just a blank. The surfaces are smooth with no color, and to make it look more realistic, we have to get in Photoshop and paint up textures that'll make it look more of like a tactile thing. Then the next step is just like a real set. You have to light it, set the lights up like you want it to look. And in 3D space, you have a little camera in there too. It's very much just like a film set, except it's in your computer and a nerd is creating it. I say that lovingly.
There was talks at one point of us trying to get an alien homeworld. And actually, it was going to be the final shot of the movie. It was something that we did some concepts for, kind of played around with it.
It's very much in keeping with the, the design aspects of the aliens. It's a Giger-esque kind of hive-like landscape, extremely scary, barren planet.
It was just, again, one of those things that it felt a little forced in. So I think it might be better to be explored in the next movie.
Wait a minute, this movement seems to have life.
One of the things that fascinates people about the aliens, I think, is that they're so alien.
It just sparks people's imaginations.
They're just this relentless machine of reproduction and murder.
Because we don't understand how they work and what they do and why they do it, it's compelling. You want to find the reasons.
All science fiction, when you write it, it's supposed to have science as part of the makeup. It needs to be sort of an integral part of the story. You always ask in science fiction, what if or how come? And so when I do these things, I look at them and say, okay, well, I want to know.
Is this going to be a stand-up fight, sir, or another bug hunt?
All we know is that there's still no contact with the colony and that a xenomorph may be involved.
Xenomorph literally means strange shape or alien form.
This can also apply to really animals on this planet as well. For example, there are life forms at volcanic openings underwater. There are a class of xenomorphs that get their energy from the volcanic heat and really mimic the most outlandish scientific comic book that you could find. The way in which the alien reproduces is not at all unfathomable or unlikely.
It goes through different life stages, like a moth.
The alien comes from a queen which has an ovipositor, that is a device on the abdomen in which eggs are laid down. The eggs then have a middle larval stage that we recognize as the face-hugger stage. The face-hugger deposits a larval entity into the host. The humans will incubate this larval until it develops into an immature alien and then erupt from the body. In many ways, the alien reproductive means is far less disgusting than what we see in the natural world. There are many examples in the insect world in which eggs are laid in a host. The host then serves as the incubating agent for a larval stage, and then the mature or the final entity then emerges.
Kind of like wasps will sting a spider and then lay eggs in it, and they hatch out later and eat the spider from within.
The alien is driven by one force and one force alone. That is the propagation and continuation of its species.
They are hardwired into breeding in a certain fashion that limits their ability to change. It's also presumed, however, that maybe the alien does have these qualities, that by finding a host with a common genetic characteristic, that perhaps there are codes of genes in the host that the alien can adopt into their own nuclei so that they can also adapt.
The first one that comes to mind is the alien that was on Furina 161. It was born of a dog. The alien, once it was born, preferred a quadrupedal stance over bipedal. The best way to have that creature exist in a body is to force the body to create itself. I think what the facehugger is doing is it's actually depositing something that might be the equivalent of a virus within its host, and through the mingling of DNA from within the virus with the host DNA, it actually forces the host body to create an embryo.
The fact that the alien takes on some of the genetic characteristics of the host is not unlike a bacteriophage in nature, in which a virus actually can invade a bacteria and alter the genetic structure. So genetic swapping is not so far-fetched, and it's plausible, certainly in these extraterrestrial aliens. Bioweapons are certainly part and parcel of Alien versus Predator. And it's been speculated that the alien is really a bioweapon.
In the case of the aliens, what you have is they have developed their weaponry to the nth degree.
You've got these creatures with acid for blood, and basically every part of their body is sharp or claws or teeth. One of the worst things about them is you can't kill them, in the sense that if you kill them, you may open yourself up to a whole other problem.
It's got a wonderful defense mechanism. You don't dare kill it.
They never talk about exactly what acid is. It would have to be something fairly potent, hydrosulfuric or something that would just really cook.
Based on what we've seen of this fluid when it comes into contact with skin, it seems very consistent with hydrofluoric acid. A little bit of hydrofluoric acid introduced to living tissue can very quickly cause systematic toxicity. It also causes liquefactive necrosis. Not only is it corrosive, but it's physically deadly.
The alien has this incredibly acidic blood. And so it raises the question, why isn't the alien consumed by its own blood if it's that acidic? And the answer may lie in the same way our stomach is protected from degradation from our own stomach acids. We have a lining in the stomach that protects the cells underneath it from the very acids being secreted by other cells in the stomach. And in the same way, perhaps the alien has a secretory means by which to encapsulate the blood and therefore protect the entity from this very acidic blood. The alien appears to have an exoskeleton.
Exoskeletons are essentially a dense, hard exterior structure that holds this internal circulatory fluids, internal organs in place. In order for the exoskeleton to be resilient and resistant to its internal fluids, we would need to introduce something like fluorine, because hydrofluoric acid reacts to everything except fluorine and fluorine compounds. The incorporation of fluorine could even go further in that the alien may also be producing polytetrafluoroethylene as connective tissue, which is essentially Teflon.
Their body's essentially like a glass jar that can hold this stuff without melting.
The exoskeleton generally limits mobility. And yet we find the alien doing things that suggest an endoskeleton or an internal skeleton like we have. So it's possible that the alien might have a combination in which the upper torso is exoskeleton for defense, and that the lower part of the body may be more of a traditional endoskeleton entity, which allows legs to be flexible, move in spaces that it could not normally do if the entire skeleton were exo. The alien seems to have a mouth within a mouth.
It's a thing that comes out of their mouth with big old teeth on it, and that's usually the last thing you see.
This is not so far-fetched. In fact, there are moray eels that possess something known as a pharyngeal jaw. That is, the moray eel, when hiding in coral, will open its mouth and then send out another pair of jaws that have teeth that will grab a prey item, draw it back down into the throat, and then the other mouth will close.
Come on! Come and get me, you fucker!
The alien doesn't have any eyes, but it seems that the entire head would be used as a means of acquiring sensory input.
We always thought of it as the way same way that sharks sense prey. They actually can detect bioelectric fields. So even though sharks have eyes, they can, in a completely dark water, still sense prey by picking up its electrical field.
And we see instances where the alien just seems to know where a threat or a prey is. On LV-426, Drake passed an alien. The alien stood up and turned to face him. It knew where he was.
We don't have to go too far to imagine ourselves as predators, in which we don't always use our eyes, but we sense vibration. We can smell. We can detect animals really close to us, and we detect this as a threat.
I think the biggest weakness that the aliens have is that they're stupid. The aliens are about as smart as a dumb German Shepherd.
They are only creatures of instinct, and that they don't have the ability to go outside their program.
They don't need to be very smart. And they're hive minds, so you only need to have one smart one in the whole bunch, and that would be the queen. And she basically is the brain. She runs everybody around, and they do what they're told.
You can stay one step ahead of them by, once you know what they do, they're not going to do anything different than them.
The way that they get beaten in all the movies is that people are smarter than they are.
Ugly motherfucker.
The predators are fascinating.
They're hunters, they're warriors.
They don't seem to be particularly impressed by what we've created or what we've done. We're just good to hunt.
Clearly, they're light years ahead of us in technology.
But because it looks good doesn't always mean that it works that way in the real world. You make what they call a suspension of disbelief. After that, you have to get all the rest of it right. So if you're going to have something scientific there, it needs to be as close to real as you can make it.
You admire the son of a bitch.
Not what he does, Lieutenant. For what he is. For what he can give us.
If you want to talk about the intelligence of the Predator, it's probably fairly high.
They've mastered communication, interstellar flight, weaponry. In fact, they're probably quite more advanced than the Earth in terms of intelligence.
They've mastered interstellar space travel, presumably faster than light travel.
So the way that they got here was by using technology that we don't have, because they aren't local. There's no planet in our solar system that will support anything like a Predator. The nearest planet to us of any size is Venus, and the surface temperature of Venus is fairly potent. So they didn't come from there.
The real challenging question in space travel is the long interstellar distances. Because we know, or as far as we can tell, you can't travel faster than the speed of light, and that puts the real limit on things.
Interstellar travel is really tough because the nearest star is 4 light years away, much, much further than even the most distant planet in our solar system.
If you are halfway across the galaxy, in order to get from there to here, you can't do it in regular time. I mean, you were talking hundreds of thousands of years.
Another more interesting question is what you see all the time in movies like this. If you're going to go interstellar to do something like warp speed or warp travel.
We take a shortcut through a warp. Current physics that people like to talk about wormholes. What is on the other side of a black hole? You can postulate the idea maybe on the other end of that black hole is another spot in the universe where it gets out. If you could figure out a way to make that thing big enough and you could fly a ship through there, it would be a really nice shortcut.
At the current understanding of science, we would have no idea how to do that. However, it's not completely ruled out because we are starting to get a better understanding of how space-time itself might actually bend and warp and how you might be able to do something like that in principle.
I mean, the predators seem to view the world around them through some sort of infrared vision.
The human eye is set to look at a very narrow wavelength band between ultraviolet and infrared light called visible light. But it's very easy to imagine an alien species that could see in infrared.
You don't have to rely on this reflective effect. So with the visible light, we see things by the visible light bouncing off. The predator can detect the radiation that's just naturally radiated in the infrared.
Any warm body actually radiates most of its radiation in the infrared rather than visible light.
We actually have infrared cameras that detect that. That's how night vision goggles, a lot of them work by detecting that infrared radiation and then displaying it in its image in the optical for you to see. For the predator, that seems to be their natural vision pattern, and they just detect the infrared easily.
The predator has a green bioluminescent blood. On Earth, bioluminescence is an enzymatic reaction brought on by the oxidation of a specific pigment.
We have animals on this planet that luminesce, the firefly being the most obvious.
The bioluminescent blood is most likely an evolved trait. One possible theory is that it was evolved as a form of self-defense. Having bioluminescent blood squirt out and fill your face or fill your mouth is going to be very distracting and probably, because of the chemical reaction, not taste very good.
Predator's blood is green, which suggests that it may not be binding with oxygen, that there are other gases. There's lots of gases in our atmosphere. The most plentiful is nitrogen. Maybe the predator is using a different gas to metabolize, and hence the color doesn't have to be of a reddish nature.
I think probably the truth is that their culture is very martial. They're hunters, they're warriors.
The predators rely on their technology in the hunt.
The predator's cloaking device is actually really an interesting technological device.
Well, I can't tell you too much because I've been sworn to secrecy by the predators themselves.
There's a number of ways you can use some sort of camera and image projector. You have a camera on the back of the suit that takes a picture of whatever's behind you.
And then using, say, fiber optics or some other technology, displays that image in front of you on the other side. So what a person looking at you sees is what's behind you and not you.
You would have to be fairly sophisticated, and you'd have to have a computer that would operate at pretty quick speeds.
You would have to figure out exactly what angles people are looking at, display the scene correctly, and do all this so that you appear invisible.
The camouflage isn't total, it isn't complete. If they move, it breaks up, it shifts, it adjusts.
That would be something you would be getting when the computer wasn't working quite right or able to keep up with what you were doing. The Predator, because it is limited to just the infrared vision, has this interesting battle helmet. It can do a lot of different things. One of the important features is clearly the vision modes.
Because the aliens are cold-blooded and they're the same temperature as their environment, he can't see them very well, so he switches to a mode of viewing visible light spectrum, and all of a sudden there you are.
The Predator's helmet is probably designed to switch to a mode that detects visible, translates it to infrared so the Predator can see it.
The predators seem to have a mode of X-ray vision which actually allows them to look through tissue.
X-ray vision shows up a lot in science fiction situations, and it's one of the most challenging things to figure out how it's really done because of the fundamentally different way X-rays interact with matter.
One problem is X-rays just don't stop.
X-rays go through matter. They don't reflect.
So we'd have to speculate with Predator, he must be producing X-rays, sending them out to the object, and somehow they're being stopped and reflected back to his X-ray eyes. Not sure how that could happen.
However, if what you want to do is detect things inside a human body, that we know a number of more interesting ways to do.
Perhaps the X-ray vision for the Predator is more like a sonar or a sonogram. That then would allow the Predator to see things internally, including tissue, bone, and organs.
The Predator has these really nice shoulder-mounted cannons that it uses.
It's some kind of plasma weapon. It shoots out a ball of superheated gas.
Plasma is known as the fourth state of matter. It's essentially a hot ionized gas. It'd be rather difficult to contain a ball of plasma in Earth's atmosphere.
For it to come out as some sort of contained burst like that, you might want some interesting magnetic field effects going on with it.
And then perhaps as it's used as a weapon, that magnetic field bursts and it releases the energy of the plasma.
any weapon of that sort of energy and destructive power, your challenge is always your power source for the weapon. They do have the big battle suit, so again, it's conceivable that you could get a power source in there and design it. What you're going to be faced with is dealing with the excess energy and heat that comes off of that. So you would need a good way to radiate the heat away so you don't burn yourself while you're shooting the plasma weapon out. From a basic science point of view, it's not inconceivable that you could make plasma balls that launch like that and work as weapons.
Where predators tend to lose out is that the fact that they are so single-minded in the way they do things.
Whatever makes the hunt better, more exciting, whatever helps them pursue their primary goals as a culture, which pretty much is the hunt.
It seems that they have their own form of bushido, essentially a code of conduct when it comes to the hunt.
It is a very martial, tribal, ritualistic culture. Their primary interest is in the hunt and in the rituals, and that's part of your membership in the group, which is, you know, great if you're a member of the group, and if you're outside that, not so good.
We don't really know if the predators we see are typical of all predators. They could just be the guys that like to go to the hunting lodge on Friday and, you know, go out in the woods and hunt things.
We have elements of our culture that are very warlike, but it doesn't make a statement about the entire culture.
They exist entirely just to come here and shoot people, or, you know, do they do something else?
When really, with great intelligence comes the potential for great tenderness, and that we don't really know what the predator is like.